Guys, hello, welcome to another video. It's Wednesday already, and I'm in the shiny visage light of God again. This is a natural daylight with the brightness filled up. You might notice the sun go in and out because it's England. The sun doesn't stay in one place, but it's Wednesday. Welcome to Wednesday. It's been a long time since I've done more than one video in a week, and it's kind of become unfamiliar to me now how much actual effort that is, and so I hastily threw together an idea for a video. It's an idea I'm ripping off from someone else, obviously, and today I was going to do top 5 Wednesdays because that is the last safe refuge for when you have no idea for a video on a Wednesday, but it turns out that Top 5 Wednesday is steeped in what is known as fandoms, and the topic was what's your top 5 fandom merch, and I don't own any fandom merch, so I couldn't do it. So instead I ripped off a top 5 idea that I saw from someone else. I forget where I've seen it, so if it was your original video, finders keepers. I don't know, it's bad justification, but anyway, the topic of this video is top 5 your top 5 favorite stories in video games. Video games, of course, are the newest sort of visual entertainment medium that the media wants to portray as absolutely sinister and evil, because it presents fantasy power narratives, I guess. And as a result, obviously, video games now are telling pretty good stories. I mean, we've gotten to that point with them where they're not just, little pixels blooping each other. We get some of that, but not all the time. So we're going to talk about the top 5 stories in video games. Now, the caveat to this is that I'm only going to show you video games that I can hold up, like I have a physical copy of. There are thousands of video games that I've played, and some of them probably have better stories than some of these, but these are the ones I have here, and that's it, really. That's my justification for that. So without further ado, let's crack on. We'll start off cheating straight away with this, which is Life is Strange. This is Life is Strange Before the Storm, which is a prequel to the original game. But I want to talk about the original game and this as though it were one thing, but I don't have a physical copy of the original game. If you see, I am cheating. Okay, I'm cheating. So, Life is Strange. What is Life is Strange? Life is Strange is essentially a young adult mystery series, which, if you know anything about me, is odd that I would be into that, but it works in video game form. Basically, what it's about is a girl called Max Caulfield who moves back to her hometown after so many years away, living in Seattle, and she develops a superpower which allows her to rewind time to a certain degree, so that she can redo choices and things like that. She quickly falls into cahoots with her old best friend Chloe, who is this lady here on the front, Chloe Price, who is basically a depressed, angsty punk teen whose dad died in a car crash, and there's a looming threat of a tornado that's going to destroy their town, and it's all very dramatic. I really like the presentation of this story. I think the characters are very well done. The acting is, on the whole, very good, considering it was made by a really small studio. It's pretty impressive stuff. It takes that Walking Dead telltale storytelling type of vibe, and puts it into a relatively kitschy young adult setting. But there are a lot of moments in here that just stab you through the heart. And one thing that this game does that a lot of video games definitely don't do is it lets you take time to sit down as a character just somewhere and listen to some lovely instrumental music and just sort of take in the atmosphere. And that all really adds to the story of Life is Strange and its prequel, Life is Strange Before the Storm. So that's number one. Number two, again, cheating here, Dark Souls 3! But really just the whole Dark Souls, Soulsborne, Bloodborne series. Again, I'm throwing the whole series in. Held up here by Dark Souls 3. So Dark Souls, you may have heard of it if you are familiar with video games as that game that is super hard and stuff. And it is that. And it is that. And there's not actually a lot of direct story. The story of Dark Souls is that you're an undead guy, like you're a zombie, and you're trying to kill big monsters and take their souls to do something with a fire. That sounds vague and it sounds not very good, but that is the story of Dark Souls. Like all of the Dark Souls games, that is the story of them. But what is fascinating about Dark Souls and what makes it so different to so many other games out there is the lore and the way the story is presented. Like the most of the story of the Dark Souls universe happens before you go in, and you essentially, whilst you're battling all these monsters and you're finding all this treasure and you're doing all this stuff, you're basically playing the part of an archaeologist. Like you're going to these places that have long since fallen to ruin, long since been abandoned by their owners, and you're just sort of cleaning up the fucking remnants and figuring out what happened. And there's like this really rich tapestry of like time traveling and like bands of knights and armies and wars and dragons and stuff, and there's all this really interesting like high fantasy stuff, but it's all presented to you in such a way that you have to like eke it all out of the environment yourself. And it's like, it's a really fascinating experience once you get sort of really wrapped into it, but obviously you do have to play through an incredibly hard game as well. So you might just want to look up the story on YouTube if it's not for you. But yeah, I mean, the story behind Dark Souls, like why is it made that way, is apparently the creator of the series, he read Lord of the Rings when he was growing up, but obviously he's a Japanese guy. And it wasn't translated into Japanese, and he just read it in English, and there were like huge bits of it that he didn't understand that he just sort of had to make up in his head, and that's what he wanted to like give to everyone else. Like he wanted you to have this story where you'd go in and you'd understand some of the things that were happening and some of the things would be obvious, but then at the same time, you know, you'd have to sort of fill in the blanks yourself, and that was really cool. Well done. Number three. This is a more traditional entry. This one is not cheating. Uncharted 4, A Thief's End. The original 3 Uncharted games did have stories in, but they weren't like the best stories ever. They were much more held up by their their action set pieces and things like that. And obviously Uncharted 4 has all of that, all the boxes are ticked. But what Uncharted 4 has done really well is take these characters that you really love and give them so much humanity and personality. There's like a scene really early on where the protagonist, Nathan Drake, who is like an explorer, gunman, as you can see on the cover, it's quite self-explanatory what he does. So he's an explorer gunman, and he's like retired from the thieving game. So he's just like chilling out with his wife, who's lovely. And they're just having pasta and they're goofing about, and the witty banter between them is really great, and they're like just talking about life and are they happy and stuff, and like all of these days you're like, this is like way deeper than shooty bang bang explosion action game should go, surely. but it's, you know, it really works and it really hits the nail on the head. And as the final entry, like the supposed final entry in this like franchise, like the conclusion is like, yeah, like everything like video games like Mass Effect 3 did, where they're like, oh, wouldn't it be great if we gave them all a bittersweet ending that they couldn't be happy about? Like, they didn't do that here. You know, they sent these characters off that you loved. They sent them sailing off into the sunset in like a beautiful way. And like, yeah, it's really, really fucking well done. And I really can't say much more than that, really. So, Watch Dogs 2 is number 4 on this list. This might be an odd one to people that are familiar with video games. The original Watch Dogs was like one of those games that came out super hyped up. You know, there was all these trailers and stuff. It was going to revolutionize the fucking way video games worked and the way they looked and stuff. And it came out, it was kind of a dud and everyone hated it. And I hated it as well. And then they released a trailer for Watch Dogs 2, and I was immediately hooked by the aesthetic of it. The story of this game is that you're this guy, you're Marcus. The good thing about video games is that the protagonist is almost always just on the cover, so you can just point at it and go, you're him. So you're Marcus, he's this guy. So he is a hacker for a hacker group called DedSec, which like sound like a super serious underground hacker group, but actually they're just like a bunch of chuckleheads that go around hacking memes everywhere and just sort of being goofy. And what I love about this game is the story of it isn't like you're out to save the world, you're out to stop like the most ultimate evil bad guy from doing something heinous. Like, you're just a hacker group who is out there to troll big corporations in San Francisco. And you're going around Silicon Valley, you get to go in and hack Google, you get to go in and you get to like hack Tesla and steal their space robots, and you get to go in and like expose Scientology, which if you saw my video on Monday, you'll know that just tickled me fucking pink. But the tone of this game is like, it's so lighthearted and fun. The characters are just like goofy pop culture reference swelling. You know, they're basically morons, but they're super smart hacker guys too. So they're supposed to be super cool. But it doesn't take itself seriously, and it's so tongue in cheek. I think the story just was really refreshing compared to what we get in video games. Like, there's always this high stakes peril, but the stakes in this are like, either you'll get arrested or you'll expose corporate corruption. Like, that's it. Like, those are the stakes. No one's really dying over this shit. No one's like, the bad guy ain't trying to kill you. He's just trying to like fuck you over. It's real good. It's real fun. If you didn't like the original Watch Dogs and were hesitant on this, I'd give it a go. If you don't like Ubisoft open world games, maybe don't give it a go, because it is just one of those. But it's really good. It's a really good one. So thumbs up there. And the last entry on my list, which is, I think, probably will come as no surprise to anyone really when I reveal what it is, and that is The Last of Us remastered. Nothing to do with the story. It's not been remastered in any way. It's the same story. This is obviously Game of the Year all over the place. 200 Game of the Year awards it got, and that means it gets to put it inside these laurel leaves, so it can pretend they were like real awards or something, rather than just like some guy's blog. I don't know, video game awards are kind of weird. That's a whole other thing. But The Last of Us, what is The Last of Us about? Well, video game logic, obviously you're this guy, you're Joel. He's a survivor of an apocalypse. I was recently watching a video from Will, the Bald Book Geek, and he was talking about zombie books, and is the zombie fad dead? And I would say, yeah, mostly the zombie fad is dead. But he was talking about The Girl with All the Gifts, and he was talking about how it's about a zombie outbreak caused by like the fungus that infects ants. and makes them zombies. That's like a real thing in real life. And that's exactly what this game is about. It's about a zombie outbreak that sprouts up, from this fucking fungal plague. And you're like 20 years down the line. You play this guy who's like a gruff, rugged survivor. He went through some hardship in the early days of the outbreak, so he's a bit cold and callous now. But he's teamed up with this girl, Ellie, who is revealed to be immune from the plague. And now he has to like escort her to a research lab, so hopefully that they can develop a cure. But he has to obviously go through all of these things. Again, much like with with Uncharted 4, the thing that really sells this story, because it is like a pretty typical A to B zombie survival-y story, it hits all the beats there. But what really makes this special is like the interaction between the two characters. Ellie and Joel really develop this real strong father-daughter relationship as the story goes on. And the voice acting in it is just superb. If you aren't like big into video games, I would recommend just like maybe just look up some of the cutscenes from this game, just to like see the like level of emotion and voicing that is put into the voice acting and the motion capture for these characters, because it really is something quite special, which is probably why it's endured as one of those sort of top talked about games. There's a sequel to this coming out at some point. I think it probably will be next year or the year after, the week after. So it'll be next year or the year after probably. But yeah, truly fantastic game in my opinion. I've played through it so many times, and the story never fails to choke me up at the moments where it's supposed to, and that's really all you can really hope for. So that's it, guys. That is my video for the top 5, or my top 5 stories in video games that I have on my shelf and could hold up in physical format. So thanks for watching. Tell me in the comments below if you agree or disagree, or what your favorite stories in video games are, and I'll almost certainly be happy to discuss them with you, because I fucking love video games and would love to talk about them more. Let me know if you want me to do more video game style videos, because they're a big part of my life too. The reason I don't read as much as I should. So that's it for now. I'll see you on Friday with a fun Friday video, even though this kind of was a fun Wednesday thing. But I'll be doing a tag. Good times. I'll see you then. Bye.